The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Phil Goff.
Yes, he just arrived in Wellington today. It is Phil Goff, leader of the Labour Party. Good morning to you, Phil.
Yeah, g'day, Wammo. How are you?
Not bad at all. Now, first topic this morning. Yesterday on TV3's new political show, The Nation, Stephen Joyce was the guest, and he was asked about the future of KiwiRail, and in particular the future of Jim Bolger, who heads up KiwiRail, and he refused to confirm or deny really whether or not Jim Bolger will stay on as the head of KiwiRail. And in fact insinuated that perhaps KiwiRail was being set up for sale.
Yeah, well, you've got to wonder why a national government would remove a former national prime minister in the form of Jim Bolger. You'd have to think that they have radical plans for KiwiRail. Maybe it's privatisation, maybe it's just slashing of services, closing of regional lines right around the country, an action that Jim Bolger, as a responsible person, and as a New Zealander who's has a very high profile, wouldn't be prepared to go along with. So I think that is a cause for concern. We've had the experience once of New Zealand Rail being privatised by the national government, taken over by people who have stripped the assets, run the company dry, and failed to deliver for New Zealanders. We don't want to see that again.
It's funny because this story comes in the Herald this morning, and it's you only have to flick to another page or another part of the Herald online, and there's a story this morning where KiwiRail is looking at investing over $500 million in these new rail carriages for Auckland City as well. So on the one hand, you've got these plans for the future, but on the other, the future's kind of up in the air a little bit.
Well, that's right. I think the investment in the rolling stock for the Auckland passenger transport is absolutely essential. You've only got to drive down the Auckland motorway to see how congested it is, and to know that while it's good that there's further motorway development to complete various links like the link to the northwestern motorway, it's critically important that we've got decent passenger services. Otherwise, Auckland will become gridlocked. So, yeah, great that is happening. That was planned under the last Labour government. Not so great if it's going to be privatised and it's going to be run strictly commercially without regard to things like congestion, pollution, damage by big trucks to the motorways, and so on.
Let's stay with a few Auckland issues at the moment. Where is Labour sitting at the moment with putting pressure on the government over these council-controlled organisations, which don't seem to be very democratic at all? In fact, most of the decisions for Auckland City under the new super city structure will be made behind closed doors and out of the eyes of the public.
Well, Labor's very clear on that. That's not appropriate. It's not satisfactory. 75% of the money that you and I and every other Aucklander pays in their rates to be controlled by council-controlled organisations, which in fact is a misnomer. They're organisations barely controlled by the council, appointed in the first instance by Wellington, not open and transparent in the way that they do their business, and in fact not even with the council able to determine who the chair and the vice chair of the council-controlled organisations will be. It might be inconvenient to Rodney Hyde that in democracy you've got to take into account people's views, and he wants to run it regardless of people's views. It's not satisfactory to Aucklanders. That's got to change. We'll fight that tooth and nail before the House, and we'll change it if we become government.
But how can it be changed before then? How can it be changed before the structure actually comes into place?
Well, people have made their viewpoints pretty clear in the Select Committee. 90% are against the sort of structures that are being put forward. Everybody across Auckland, from the right wing to the left wing, is opposed to the sort of changes that Rodney Hyde and John Key are imposing on Auckland. They seem oblivious to that, but I think they're going to have to bow to pressure. When your major newspaper chains, suburban newspapers and the New Zealand Herald, are both strongly opposed to what the government is trying to put in place in Auckland, taking away from Aucklanders their right of control, their right to accountability, then you know something pretty dramatically bad is happening.
On to another issue now. The multi-billion-dollar trade agreement involving New Zealand and the United States is in trouble. Hit a bit of a snag over the weekend with 30 US senators criticising this country's anti-competitive practices, in particular involving the dairy industry. Any surprises there, Phil?
Well, perhaps not a surprise. I mean, it's not accurate. I mean, look, here's the senators from a country that heavily subsidises its dairy production, criticising a country that doesn't subsidise its dairy production at all. There are some fanatical anti-Fonterra views within the American dairy industry that I dealt with quite frequently. I spent a lot of time up on the Hill talking to congressmen, to senators. It is a battle, but I'm confident that we'll get there, because the Americans, because this is a multilateral agreement across a number of different countries, they won't want to impose constraints on New Zealand exporting to the United States that would also automatically apply to the United States exporting to other countries such as Vietnam. So I'm confident that we'll get there. Will there be a fight? Yes, of course. In every trade agreement that I ever negotiated, there was a major battle. But we can prevail, because I think we're right. We do not subsidise our exports. The arguments that the dairy industry raises against us really don't hold water.
Phil, hey, finally, New Zealand entrepreneur and anti-whaling campaigner is currently locked up in a jail somewhere in Japan. Why is New Zealand letting this guy dangle out in the wind like this?
Well, my view on that's very clear. I mean, he might have technically broken a law, but he's not a criminal. He's not a terrorist. He boarded the ship openly, publicly, to serve a writ on the captain of the ship for the damage to his own boat that was involved in the collision. This was a political protest, a political act. It should be regarded as such by the Japanese, and that should be the line that the New Zealand government is putting to the Japanese. Did
Labour support the motion by the Green Party in Parliament last week to put pressure on Japan to release Pete?
Well, we never got a chance, because the National Party vetoed the motion even being heard by the House. Our view on it is quite clear. I mean, obviously we can't interfere with Japanese law, but you can, through diplomatic channels, make it clear that this was a political protest, and any criminal action against this person as a New Zealander would, in our opinion, be inappropriate.
Phil Goff, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thanks, Wammo. Good to talk to you, mate. Cheers. Bye.
Leader of the Labour Party.